My cell phone rang in the middle of a meeting. An unknown number. I ignored it. 30 seconds later, it rang again. Something compelled me to answer, and that's when I heard, "This is the principal of your daughter's school, Miss Harper. She just fainted." My heart raced. His voice was too calm, as if trying to control the panic. "Is she okay?" I asked, already grabbing my bag. "She's conscious now, but she's pale. Her blood pressure is low. She seems weak." The nurse asked for a guardian to come and pick her up immediately. I froze. My car was in the shop, and I couldn't leave work right then. School was 40 minutes away. I took a deep breath and did what seemed obvious. I called my parents. They lived 10 minutes from the school. They always said they'd do anything for her. "She fainted, Mom. I need you to go there now." My mother listened in silence. "We can't, daughter. We're busy. Ask someone else." That was a slap in the face. What could be more important than her granddaughter? "Dad, please, I'm serious." He sighed and said, "You chose to be a mother. Do it." I was speechless. For a moment, I couldn't believe I'd heard that, but I had. Share this story to reach more people. Subscribe to the channel. Share this video on WhatsApp, and leave a comment about where you're listening from. I'll be thrilled to read each comment. I ran to the station and ordered a ride through an app. As the city passed by the windows, everything inside me seemed to collapse. What had happened to my daughter? Why had she fainted? And how could my own parents be so cold? Still unsure, I just wanted to get there. The principal would send me another message that would change everything. I arrived at school with my heart racing. Harper was lying in the nurse's office, still weak, her eyes half closed. When she saw me, she tried to smile. "Mommy," she whispered. I ran and hugged her, trying to hold back the tears. The principal appeared soon after, his eyes serious. "We need to talk," he said. My stomach churned. "Is it more serious than we thought?" He closed the door and sat across from me. "Elizabeth, your daughter is malnourished." That hit me like a knife. "She hasn't eaten properly in weeks. Her teacher reported that she always refuses snacks. She said she doesn't want to burden her mother's budget." My face burned. I felt like the worst person in the world. How had I not noticed? How had I let this happen? I worked 2 jobs. I slept little. I ate poorly. But I tried to protect Harper from everything. I always thought a simple meal would be enough, that a hug would solve it. But it wasn't enough. And she tried to be strong. She tried to hide it. "Elizabeth, I know it's hard, but you're not alone," the principal said. "Except when your own parents refuse to help." That broke me. I didn't tell him what my parents had said, but the pain was written all over my face, and he noticed. "You know," he continued, "I've never seen a girl so polite, so kind, so alone." Those words shattered me. Harper, my little one, was carrying a weight I hadn't even known she carried. And now, it all made sense. The fainting, the weakness, the silence. I left school with Harper in my arms and a tightness in my chest that wouldn't go away. I decided I wouldn't hide the truth anymore, or pretend everything was okay. My parents had crossed a line, and now I would cross mine too. It was time to protect my daughter, even if it meant cutting blood ties. At home, Harper slept while I prepared a hot meal. For the first time in a long time, I sat on the couch and just stared into space. My mind wouldn't stop. The principal's words echoed: malnutrition, alone, refuses snack. I felt such deep guilt that I couldn't breathe. As a mother, I thought I was doing everything I could, but it wasn't enough. When Harper woke up, I asked carefully, "Why weren't you eating, my love?" She looked at me fearfully, as if she were about to be punished. "Because I know food is expensive, and you're always tired." My heart sank. I didn't want to be any more trouble. She spoke with such maturity that she sounded like an adult, and that hurt. She was only 9 years old. I pulled her into my arms and cried. I apologized. I told her she would never be a burden, that she was my world. She cried too. "Grandma said you don't like asking for help, that you prefer to fend for yourself," and that's when everything stopped. So that was it? My parents were talking about me like that to my daughter? This wasn't just abandonment. It was emotional sabotage. It was poison disguised as an opinion. I remembered so many times I'd asked for help and been judged. When Harper was born and I called in the middle of the night, my mom said, "You chose this." When I lost my job and asked to leave Harper there for a week, my dad said, "I don't raise a daughter to raise a granddaughter." They were never there, but they always wanted to weigh in on everything. That night, I made a silent decision. I would never again let my daughter hear that she was a problem, not even from the people who were supposed to protect her. Harper didn't deserve to grow up hearing that asking for help was a sign of weakness, because it wasn't, and I was going to prove it to her, even if I had to do it alone. The next day, my parents showed up unannounced. I opened the door and saw my mother with a grocery bag. "We brought some fruit for Harper," she said, as if nothing had happened. My father didn't even glance at me. They entered uninvited. Harper came running from the living room. "Grandma," she cried, smiling. My heart ached at the contrast. Genuine love, coming from people who don't act with love. They sat on the couch like the heroes of the story. "How is she?" my father asked. "Better now that she's with us, right?" I held back tears. I took a deep breath. "She fainted. You know that. And yet, they said they couldn't pick her up." My mother looked away. "Daughter, don't start." And then everything exploded. "Don't start? She could have died and you said you were busy." My father stood up, furious. "You've been dramatic since you were little. Everything turns into a scandal." My mother tried to silence it. "We have lives too, Elizabeth." It was at that moment that Harper hid behind the hallway door. She'd been listening to everything. I saw the fear in her eyes, and it tore at me. "You're teaching my daughter that she's a nuisance. Don't you see that?" They fell silent. For the first time, they seemed at a loss for an answer. If you can't truly be present, then don't come. Because love that disappears when things are difficult isn't good for her, or for me. My mother tried to justify herself, but I had already made up my mind. The door is there, and you won't enter it again until you understand what true family means. They left, offended, but I didn't regret it, because in that room, for the first time, I defended my daughter with the strength she deserved, and even with my chest in ruins, I felt at peace. That night, after Harper fell asleep, I sat on the edge of the bed, looking at her, so small, so light, still with her thin arms and pale face. She breathed slowly, peacefully, but I knew that peace was fragile. I almost lost my daughter, and it wasn't through illness or accident. It was through silence, through the invisible hunger she swallowed alone, afraid of worrying me. I walked to the bathroom mirror and stared at my reflection. I was devastated. Dark circles under my eyes, my hair tied up messily, my blouse stained with gravy I hadn't even noticed. For the first time in years, I felt weak, not as a woman, as a mother, because I'd promised to protect her from everything, and I'd failed. But in that reflection, amidst the guilt and exhaustion, something shone, the will to change. The next day, I called the school social worker. I told her everything, the truth, no frills. She listened carefully and said, "You're not alone, Elizabeth. There are programs, financial aid, counseling, and you don't have to go through this in the dark." That moved me. For the first time, someone saw my effort as courage, not failure. Harper began receiving counseling from the school psychologist. I, from a therapist, recommended by the social worker. And together, we began to rebuild what had been shattered by the silence. It was difficult. Each session opened a new wound, but it also healed. It showed that the problem was never asking for help. The problem was growing up being told it was weakness. Little by little, I began to understand. Being a mother isn't about being perfect. It's about being there. It's about apologizing when you make mistakes. It's about protecting yourself not only from the world, but from the lies the world teaches. And the biggest one is that we have to endure everything alone. I didn't want to be strong the old way anymore. I wanted to be strong the right way. 2 weeks after I fainted, I received a message from a cousin. They're talking about Harper in the family group, that you're in need and exposing her to poverty. I froze. I opened the group. There it was, my aunt saying that I didn't know how to be a mother, that I left the girl without food, that maybe the father should be called. My blood boiled. I was in shock for a few seconds. How could someone turn suffering into gossip? Harper nearly passed out from hunger, and what they see is an opportunity to point the finger. They printed out excerpts from the school video, commented on my appearance in the photos. They called me irresponsible. Every word was a punch in the gut. And worst of all, no one there called me. No one asked my side of the story. I tried to breathe, but I couldn't. I wrote a huge message in the group, saying everything. I talked about fainting, my parents' refusal to pick up Harper, the pain of being judged by people who call themselves family, but only show up to comment on disasters. And I ended with a phrase that came from deep within my soul. If you weren't a help, don't be a burden. Silence. No one responded. Some people left the group. Others remained quiet. But something changed in me. I was no longer afraid of what they were saying, because now I knew who I was. I knew what I was doing for Harper. The pain of being judged by people who call themselves family, but only show up to comment on disasters. And I ended with a phrase that came from deep within my soul. If you weren't a help, don't be a burden. Silence. No one responded. Some people left the group. Others remained quiet. But something changed in me. I was no longer afraid of what they were saying, because now I knew who I was. And I knew that true bonds are revealed in crisis, not at a Christmas with a full table. That week taught me something hard but necessary. Sometimes, the worst abandonment comes from the one who carries your surname, and the greatest strength comes from within, when you understand that you no longer need to please those who don't care. At her third session with the school psychologist, Harper brought a little letter she'd written herself. She folded it, handed it to me, and said, "Only read it when you're alone." I obeyed. I put it in my pocket and went home with a heavy heart. That night, I sat on my bed, took a deep breath, and opened it. Her handwriting was shaky but clear. "Mommy, I know you work hard for me, and I promise I'll eat better." I kept reading. "I didn't want to worry you. I just wanted to help. I thought if I ate less, there would be more food left for you. I saw you crying in the bathroom the other day." My chest tightened. "You're the best mother in the world. Even when you're tired, you hug me. Even when you're sad, you make me smile. I wanted you to know that I'm strong because you are." And at the end, a heart drawn in crayon. I cried right there, alone, with the paper in my lap. A cry that mixed everything: guilt, love, pride, pain. That girl saw my efforts with a maturity not even adults can achieve, and that broke me and healed me. Because despite everything I lacked, she saw what I tried most to give: presence, care, love. I went to her room and kissed her forehead. She slept with her arms curled up, holding an old stuffed animal she said brought her luck. In that moment, I made a silent promise. She would never go through that again. Not hunger, not fear, not silence. I couldn't change the past, but I could protect our future. And in that future, there was no room for anyone who didn't truly love. Not the parents who abandoned me. Not the relatives who only knew how to judge. It was me and her. It always had been. And now, more than ever, it always would be. The following week, my mother called me. He said he wanted to work things out. He asked us to have lunch together. I was reluctant, but I accepted. I thought maybe it was the beginning of a reconciliation. I arrived at the restaurant with a heavy heart. She was already there, with the cutlery set out, as if it were a normal date. But nothing was normal, and the conversation would prove it. She began with a speech. "I was tough on you, but it was for your own good." I remained silent. "You play the victim too much, Elizabeth. This whole school thing. You're exaggerating." My blood ran cold. We didn't pick up Harper because we thought it was just a whim. Kids faint. It happens. It was unbelievable. There was no blame, only excuses. I took a deep breath. "Do you realize what you're saying?" She passed out from hunger, from fear, and you turned your backs. She countered. "You turned your backs first, when you decided to raise a daughter without a father, without a structure." That tore me apart, but it didn't break me. I looked her straight in the eye and said, "Never blame me again for choosing to love my daughter more than any of you ever loved me." I got up from the table, leaving my plate untouched. She stood there, unresponsive. For the first time, I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just told the truth. And I left with the certainty that there was no longer a bond there. Because when a mother doesn't feel for her granddaughter, she's already stopped being a grandmother. And when she doesn't feel for her daughter, she stopped being a mother a long time ago. That day, I cut the cord for good. And it wasn't out of anger. It was out of protection. Because Harper deserved to grow up in a world where love doesn't come with conditions. And I deserved peace. A few days later, the school held a presentation. Each child had to say what they admired most in their life. Harper insisted she wanted to participate, even though she was shy. I sat in the back of the auditorium, trying not to cry just seeing her there, standing with a piece of paper in her hand. The teacher called her name. She took a deep breath, stepped onto the stage, and began to speak. "I admire my mother, because she never gave up on me, even when things were difficult. She works hard, but always says good morning with a kiss. And even when she's sad, she listens to me." The audience fell silent. "She's the strongest person I know. And even without help, she made me feel like the most loved girl in the world." My throat closed. I couldn't hold back the tears. The other mothers looked at me with empathy. Some were crying too. When Harper stepped off the stage, she ran to me. "Did you like it, Mommy?" I hugged her tightly, as if I wanted to protect her from the whole world. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. And it was. Because this wasn't just a tribute. It was a cry of love, a truth spoken out loud. That day, the director called me in. She said they were organizing an internal campaign about single-parent families and wanted me to speak to other parents. "Your strength inspired our employees, and your daughter touched us all." That gave me courage. I realized that our story, however painful, had the power to heal others too. It was at that moment that I understood. My pain was no longer a secret. It was fuel. And if I couldn't change the past, I could use it to change the future. Not just for Harper, but for so many other invisible children who carry more than they should. One morning, I received a letter. It was from Child Protective Services. Someone had filed an anonymous report of child neglect. At first, I thought it was a mistake, but when I read the description of the report, I felt a chill. Single mother, emotionally destitute, left her daughter to starve. It was exactly what my aunt had said in the family group. I knew it came from there. I was in shock. I immediately called the school, which had already sent positive reports about Harper's condition. "We'll support you no matter what, Elizabeth," the principal said. Still, fear consumed me. What if they took my daughter away from me? What if they believed that lie? The mere thought knocked me off my feet. But I was no longer afraid to fight. Now I knew what I was capable of. I prepared documents, school reports, and reports from sessions with the psychologist. When the social worker came to my house, I found something rare in her: humanity. She saw the full refrigerator, Harper smiling, our drawings taped to the wall. "I can see there's love here, but I need to know. Do you have family support?" I looked her in the eye and answered firmly, "No," and that's what has saved me. The visit ended with a hug. "Keep it up. Your daughter is lucky to have you." I held that phrase as a shield. A few days later, I received the official ruling. The complaint was dismissed due to inconsistency and lack of evidence. I breathed a sigh of relief, but I was also furious, because now I knew that the greatest danger lay within my own family. And in that moment, I swore that my daughter would never again be the target of revenge, envy, or cruelty from those who hide behind their surname. If they wanted war, I would choose peace, but not the peace of silence, the peace that comes from truth and courage. A few weeks later, I was invited to give a short talk at a nearby school. The topic was single motherhood and emotional strength. I sat in front of 20 women, all wearing the same exhaustion I knew so well. I began by telling my story, about Harper's fainting, about my parents' phone call, about the door closed by the one who was supposed to open it. With each sentence, I saw teary eyes, shaking heads, mothers who recognized themselves in the pain. When I finished, there was silence, and then applause. A woman approached, holding her daughter's hand. "Thank you. Today I realized I'm not a failure. I'm just tired, and that's okay." That moved me more than any award, because words, when born from pain, have the power to heal. After the talk, Harper hugged me tightly. "Are you a hero now?" she teased. I smiled. "No, love. I only learned to speak up when I was told to." And that was exactly it. For years, I'd swallowed everything in the name of peace. But now, my peace came from the truth. It came from standing up for those I love. It came from no longer giving in. Back home, Harper drew a picture of a woman in a red cape. At the top, she wrote, "My mommy saves lives." I kept that paper as a treasured keepsake, because there was the recognition I'd always hoped for, but that would never come from my old family. It came from her, from my daughter, and that was enough. That day, I went to bed with a calm heart, for the first time in a long time, without guilt, without fear, only with love, and the certainty that, even with so many no's, I said yes to the most important thing in my life, protecting Harper, with everything I am. One Saturday morning, I found a plain envelope on my doorstep, no return address. Inside, a letter from my mother. The handwriting was the same as always, firm and distant. "Elizabeth, I know you're hurt, but you need to understand. We did what we thought was best. We've always been strict. That doesn't mean we don't love you." My chest tightened. Here came another attempt to justify the abandonment. I kept reading. "If you want to talk, you know where to find us." No apology, no real acknowledgement, just a cold, almost bureaucratic invitation, like someone sending a bill. I tore up the letter without hesitation, not out of hatred, but out of peace, because I finally understood that this was never about reconciliation. It was about control. They didn't want to apologize. They wanted me to return to the role of submissive daughter. They wanted me to pretend nothing happened, to ignore the years of silence, the refusal to help Harper, the false accusation. But that cycle was broken, and I would never again be complicit in it. Harper saw me tear open the envelope and asked, "Was it from Grandma?" I replied firmly, "It was, but you and I already have everything we need inside." I pointed to her heart. She smiled and nodded. She didn't need anything else, because she too learned that true love doesn't need to be begged for. That envelope was the last sign of my old family. I didn't respond. I didn't look. I just followed. Because the best answer to someone who didn't know how to love you is to live a life full of true love. One random Sunday, while tidying the kitchen with Harper, I heard a knock on the door. I thought it was Clara, my neighbor, but it was my father, alone, wearing a cap and sunglasses, as if trying to hide from his own mistake. For a second, I froze. He wouldn't look me in the eye. He was just holding something in his hand, a photo of Harper when she was 4. I found this yesterday, and I remembered how much we lost. He asked to talk. Harper was in the room, so I let him. I sat on the couch, waiting for something decent to come, but he began as usual. Your mother didn't want me to come, but I felt I had to. He tried to sound sincere, but what he was saying didn't quite sink in. You can't imagine how hard it is to see your daughter talking about you on video, like she's a stranger. The truth? It hurt, but it didn't shake me. He continued. We failed. I failed, and I don't know if it can be fixed. For the first time, I saw something resembling regret, but it wasn't enough. Dad, I replied, it's not about making a mistake. It's about denying it. It's about turning your back when you need it most. He nodded, his eyes welling up. He stood there, as if waiting for an immediate sign of forgiveness, but that wasn't how it worked. I told him he could only see Harper again if she wanted him to, that there was no more room for appearances. If you want to be a grandfather, you'll have to earn it, and you'll have to listen to her, without defending yourself, without running away. He agreed, and left. He left the photo on the shelf. I stood there for a few minutes, staring at the image of my daughter as a young child, unsure of what the future would bring. But I knew one thing. My story wasn't theirs anymore. It was mine, and Harper's. And no matter how much the past knocked on the door, I had learned to choose who I let in. The following week, Harper asked me, Mommy, is Grandpa coming back? I hesitated. I told her he'd shown up, that he wanted to talk, but that the choice was hers. She looked thoughtful, then replied with impressive calm, maybe someday, but not now. I was surprised, but respectful. She was learning early on something that took me years to understand, that love also has limits. At school, she drew a picture with the caption, My family is me, my mother, and the friends who help us. She had Clara, the teacher, the neighbor's dog, but she didn't have my parents. She didn't have grandparents, and that broke my heart. Not for me, but for her. She learned to live without them. She learned to protect herself, and that wasn't fair, but it was reality. I showed the drawing to my therapist and asked, will she miss it? He responded with something I've never forgotten. She already missed it. Now, she just fills the gaps with those who are truly there. That echoed inside me. Harper hadn't forgotten the pain. She'd just learned not to repeat the mistake of trusting those who don't show up. That night, we had our favorite dinner, macaroni and cheese with corn. Harper set the table, put away 2 plates, and said, Is everything okay now, Mommy? I smiled. Yes, my love. And it was, because it didn't matter who stayed. It mattered who really stayed. And in the end, that was all we needed. And there, with a simple meal, a tight hug, and a heartfelt laugh, we built another piece of our new family, made of truth, of presence, and of love that never fails when needed most. Months have passed since that day at school. Harper never fainted again. She never stopped eating. She smiled lightly again, unafraid of seeming like a burden. I watch her grow more confident, more whole, and I know part of that comes from simply knowing that now she has someone to trust, truly, unconditionally, without abandonment. Today she makes her own snack and makes sure to give me a little note with it. So, you don't forget to eat too, Mommy. I keep each one. They're my daily reminders that it was worth resisting, even when everything seemed to be falling apart. That protecting her was, is, and always will be my most important mission. Because now, we are a team, a home of 2 strong and whole people. My old family, still distant. Some cold attempts at rapprochement appeared, but I didn't give in. Not for revenge, for protection. The wound no longer controls me, but I learned that keeping distance from those who hurt is also love, self-love, and love for my daughter. She doesn't need toxic bonds to understand what family is. Clara is still present. The school is too. We formed a network, a village, a support bubble that doesn't depend on last names, only on hearts. And if today I look in the mirror and see a different woman, It's because Harper taught me to be a stronger version of myself. She saved me, even when I thought I was the only one trying to save her. If you've made it this far, share this story to reach more hearts. Subscribe to the channel, send this video to someone on WhatsApp who needs to hear it, and comment below where you're listening. I'd love to read every comment. See you next time.